Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. Thanks for joining me in another episode of Keep It Real. So we have a national security issue on our hands, and it might not be what you're thinking of. It's that the age group, age 17 to 24, they look at the statistics of body composition and overall fitness, and 75% of this age group is not fit for military duty. And so you can see how, we have an all voluntary military force, and if we have a shrinking pool to pull from, then this puts our national security at risk. And so there's researchers and people high up and government officials that realize that this is an issue. So some researchers have been funded to study what could be done about this. And so some researchers out of Ohio State University recently published, just a few days ago, a really interesting article that's published in a journal called Military Medicine. And what they did is they took a group of military cadets, people in sort of ROTC, that from multiple branches of the military, and they evaluated them in multiple ways. And so basically they took the group and they split it into two. One half just followed standard American diet, a minimum of 40% carbohydrates per day, and in addition to just regular, kind of standard American foods. And then the other group, they did a low carbohydrate diet. So sort of low carbohydrate, medium protein, higher fat diet. And when this has been done in the past, especially way in the past, like in the 60s and 70s, and then even more recently, they usually do this in a very short time frame, like 4 to 7 days. And then they evaluate body composition and certain physical fitness or human performance kind of measurements. And what those past studies have shown is that in that short period of time, when you go from a high carb diet to a low carb diet, the overall performance, strength and speed and endurance all they all diminish in that short period of time. But the researcher of this study did the right thing, and they extended the period of time. This is about a 12-week study. And this is a really important thing, because for the body to transition from a low carb diet, from a high carb diet to a low carb diet, there's a necessary transition period for the body to get what we call fat adapted. Your body has to be able to start utilizing your dietary fats, and then even more importantly, your internal fats as fuel. Because when carbohydrates and insulin are up high, our fat burning hormones are down low. And so they have to use this transition period of a few weeks for this process to happen. And so they did that in this 12-week study, and they found some really interesting things. I'll probably report on this article from a couple different angles over the next couple weeks, because there's a lot of interesting information that came out of it. But the two things I want to really report on today is there's a really significant body composition change. So with this lack of fitness in this age group, by doing a fairly simple change to the diet, their body composition improved dramatically. They had a really significant drop in body fat percentage, and most importantly, of the really key type of body fat, which is the VAT, the visceral adipose tissue, the belly fat. This is the stuff that is a risk factor for cardiometabolic issues like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, but also general inflammation, because we know from lots of statistics that people in the military suffer a lot of non-combat injuries, and that's just because of lack of proper nutrition and lack of optimal body composition and general fitness. And so by decreasing body fat, decrease inflammation, that helps to increase fitness and strength and endurance. And they measured this. They measured the group that's following the standard diet, which is oftentimes claimed as what is required to have a proper amount of strength and endurance and quickness and power. And so they studied this. And what they found out is after that sort of transition period of a couple of weeks of becoming more fat adapted, the group that followed the very low carbohydrate diet actually had at least the same amount of endurance, fitness, strength, power. They measured it in multiple ways, and there's some really significant improvements that they had on this low carbohydrate diet without suffering in low performance, which is some of those really short-term studies. That's what they show. But this is really important because this is something that maybe we'll talk about a little bit more in a future episode. But what it also provided for these young military people is metabolic flexibility. Because if you're on the carbohydrate roller coaster, your carbs go up, they crash, you crave more carbohydrates, especially sugars and these kind of things, and it spikes back up. And then you're just on this roller coaster. And when a person is more fat adapted, they're not going to experience those crashes because the body is fat adapted. It's able to tap the fat and energy reserves that are in the body. And remember, even very, very lean people have tens of thousands of calories of fat just ready to be used as fuel, as opposed to carbohydrates. There's maybe only 1,500 to 2,000 calories of fuel. So that's why it goes up and down, and people have to be so focused on when's the next meal or when's the next snack coming. But you can see that in certain circumstances, particularly in the military, to be able to function at optimal levels, like in extended periods of time in between food, then that can be a major, major advantage. But they also found that they had a significant change in their body composition, which will help to decrease, non-combat and certainly even combat injuries. It helped to improve overall performance and overall fitness level. So they concluded in the study that making this relatively small change to their diet is a really significant and doable thing that they could accomplish with this age group. And this is 17 to 24, where arguably people feel that this is a very difficult age group to make these kind of dietary transitions. And the researchers proved in this study that following the metrics, they're able to evaluate their levels of certain biomarkers to show that they were definitely following the diet. They did it. It was very successful, and it was a fascinating study. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this helps to encourage you to start making some of these changes. If you or one of your loved ones are experiencing these kind of, statistics that are out there, 75% of the population, and even this kind of subgroup, ages 17 to 24, there's changes that can be made to really increase your overall health and fitness. So I'll keep reading the studies and bringing you the information. Until then, keep it real.